have to stay, but they've chosen to. So, Lord, we could talk about a lot of things, but what we want to do, Lord, is for you just to show us as a reminder that prophecies are coming true, that, Lord, you're in charge, and we cannot set dates, but we are to be aware. That's why you have given prophecies through the years. So bless us now in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, in your folder, there's one handout that we're not going to read from, and it just starts off saying the Roman Church. I mentioned this morning that the Roman Church, most of us in here are aware of the past history, but think about the early church, first century, second century. Now, I'm fully aware that I have at home, and I was going to bring it just to show you, that I have the original, one of the originals, book called The Question Box, printed by the Roman Catholic Church in 1936, I believe it was. And I've used it many times in Bible studies because Seventh-day Adventists many times will say things, but a person may say, well, how do I know that? There is a new one out. It's called The Question Box, and the pages are identical to the original. Now, the original is only about that size, and my pages are worn out because it's 1936. And I use the page, for example, on the Sabbath, where the Roman Church says, yes, we really could not change the original law. However, that we do, as God's church, through the power of the Pope, we can make a change to accept Sunday worship. So I use that in Bible study, so they don't have to hear me just saying. And but anyway, the church, as we know, claims to go back to Peter. However, there is no historical statements on that fact. We all know what was happening, that the Roman Empire was going after all the Christians because they wanted to maintain power. But the beginning of the Catholic Church was beginning to use its influence. But it did take all the way up to the 3rd century or 4th century and 300 AD plus when Constantine got involved. So it's very interesting, regardless of what the Roman Church says, the historical fact is that the pressure didn't come until really with Constantine. He was losing, like I said this morning, or if you are familiar, the Jewish writer Josephus said that the persecution, of course, he says the blood was becoming seeds for growth. So instead of killing him, throwing him to the lions and everything else, the church continued to grow. And so it was Constantine's then, he was losing power. If you understand Roman history, the history of Daniel's chapter 2, the first world powers, we all know that the Babylonian Empire, paganism. Next, Media-Persia, paganism. Next, Greece and Rome, all paganism powers politically, okay? And so about the first 300 years, that's what they were doing. They were trying to keep their power, but as we know from prophecy, God is in control. We must never forget Daniel 2, when you read 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, what does it say? God sets up kings and he takes them down. And sometimes the Seventh-day Adventists, it's easy to say, well, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. We understand the prophecies, but we also understand that God is in control. And we are aware of two other things. One was mentioned in Sabbath school this morning, that that the signs that Jesus talked about in Matthew 24, Daniel, Matthew, and then, of course, in Luke and also in Revelation, we have all these end-time prophecies. But Jesus said, remember what he said? That when you see the signs of summer, which means the spring, know that summer is nigh. And then the other important text is, to keep it, I think we all understand, that he will cut his work short in righteousness. Now, it doesn't mean, it means what it says, in righteousness. And we all understand that he said the message is to go to all the world, then the end will come. And that's what God's waiting for. He's not waiting for these things to happen that we know is going to happen. So, having said that, Constantine, as you all know this, just a review, was losing power. And we know by, the 5th century that they were so bad off that barbaric nations were able to come in and form what is today Europe. And so they just were so weak they couldn't have enough army or whatever to go out and fight. And so he saw it coming. And of course, Satan was leading in all this. And that was to let's bring the two sides together, compromise. And of course, we know what he did. Bring the Christians in to worship on Sunday, and he required it by law, we know that, in honor of the resurrection. And of course, the pagans, the Easter form, all that. So we understand how that worked. And folks, there's some other comments that people make. And I say people, Hal Lindsey, for example. Stop and think about it. How many have heard of the 7-year tribulation period? Okay, I think I see a lot of hands. I could ask anybody, show me in the Bible where it says 7-year tribulation. See what I'm saying? So again, we can't criticize other people. We ourselves also must know what the truth is. And so, of course, then the Roman power officially, as we all know, began in 538 because they finally had enough power to take over, one of the European kings, if you want to say it that way. And from then on, it continued to grow until they had control for how many years? 1,260 years, 538, all the way down to 1798, when Napoleon took the Pope captive. Up to that time, we understand that, hundreds, it's estimated 100 million people were killed in those Middle Ages. But in the 12th and 13th century, God was leading people to make different changes in the Bible. By the way, a lot of people are not aware of this. They made sure, and I'm aware that some of you in here, I think, have maybe came out of the Catholic Church or maybe still remember the Catholic Church. The procedure through those centuries was not to, they said it this way, in order to stand the Bible, it's got to be theologians who are intelligent, can do it, implying that nobody else is smart enough to interpret it. And Martin Luther, becoming a priest in school, you know the story, one day looks and he finds a Latin Bible in the library. And it shocked him. And that's what led. He said, well, everybody needs this. And so that started the whole revolution. So, moving down through the years, after 1798, Pope wasn't released till 1815, but they were now weakened. Okay? 1927, something critically happened in history. The Lateran Treaty was signed, which up to that point, the Catholics were having a struggle with the Italian government. And so finally an agreement was reached, which gave the Catholic Church neutral territory called Vatican City. Why is that important? It's important today, all along, because it's a state, and that means that the Pope can go before the United Nations. You and I can't go before the United Nations. It has to be somebody connected with a country or designated by somebody from a country. That's important. Something else that's important, I do not have time to go into it, but it's critically important. When the Catholic Church saw that the persecution wasn't working, they were starting to have different branches of churches. The Wesley Brothers started the Methodist Church, and of course the Lutheran Church started, and the Presbyterian Church. So they saw what was going to happen here. There were going to be multiple churches getting right. And so what did they do? They had to figure out a way. And again, my whole point this morning now is they haven't changed. The same system they've always used. They come back. They try persecution. That doesn't work. Then they try another method. So as we know, the idea of forming a Jesuit order, 1534, did not become the legal part of the Catholic Church till 1540. 6 years it took. Well, we could discuss that for a long time, why it was that way. I have some opinions, but whatever. And it's been always recognized as the military thing, if you want to say it that way. But to deal with, at that time, these new Protestant churches, because if one church or all this became such a power, it could be a threat to the political power of the Catholic Church. Don't forget, if you go history, the Catholic history is tied to politics. Okay, you can see it. I mean, that's just a known fact. And so, of course, the purpose of the Jesuits was to become educated and get involved in the different Protestant churches. And of course, most of the issues read in great controversy, probably in other sources. I'm only going to throw this out because I mentioned somebody earlier, but you probably haven't thought about it. But it's very interesting to look at the history going forward. Is it an accident that the Jesuits, if you go back to the 490-year prophecy of Daniel 9, 7, 8, or 9, but 9, we all know the beginning of the 490-year prophecy, when the decree went forth to rebuild and inhabit Jerusalem. The people who've taught false stories, such as Hal Lindsey, Tim LaHaye, and some of these others, said, well, that just had to be, it was held up for 7 years. So that means instead of 490-year prophecy, in AD 27 in that last week, it was really 483 years and so what he says in the book, I started to bring it today and just show you. He says that 7 years was not, since they started 7 years later, the midst of that last week, which we know was AD 31, was really 483 years to that point. And his quote is, it just had to be moved to the end of time. And now we got all kinds of theories. It's coming right back to it. The rapture, Israel's going to be reinstated at the middle of that week, and it's not even biblical. I mean, you can ask any theologian, show me in the Bible where it says that. And the other point is, if you read Daniel 9, and when you, what does it say? In the midst of the last week, the sacrificial system ended. I mean, a fifth grader or third grader ought to be able to read what that means. You've had a system, and now it's over. Why? Because it pointed to that system, Jesus dying on the cross. But anyway, I know you didn't ask for all that, but I will tell you, you can start adding up to 1540, and you'll find out 500 years goes down to coming up 2040. Subtract 7 from that, and look where you are. The Catholic Church believes that Christ died in AD 33, not 31. Just keep that in mind. All right. What we're going to do is what happened next after the Lateran Treaty. Okay? Pope John the 23rd, 1967. Now, how many of you, I'm 83 years old. How many of you remember 1967 when, all right, there are a few hands. Pope John the 23rd came up with an idea that came from the leadership, obviously, to draw back. Matter of fact, let me back and tell you what it said. In the middle of Time magazine and Newsweek magazine, there was a complete portrayal, and it showed that there was one church for centuries. Then it showed the Protestant Reformation, all the subdivisions, like the Methodist Church eventually became 7 branches, and different things like that. And Pope John 23rd's plan was to bring the church all back as one Christian church. It showed it. The plan was right there, coming right back down. 50 years later, 2017. And that brings us to where we are now. Pope Francis came over, became the Pope in 2012. First Pope simply stepped down. He didn't die. Keep in mind that Pope John the 23rd pointed to the same time frame, 2017. Remember, the Catholic Church has plans right down the road, not just today. I mean, they don't plan just today. And so in his inaugural address, and by the way, we all know that Pope Francis was the first Jesuit priest, not an accident. I just said, look at the beginning at 1540. Why? 1534, they decided, wait a minute, we've got to do something besides persecute. That's not working. Same thing that went back to the early church. We got to start working with compromise. And we can see how it's working. So today, all the Protestant churches, or at most, worship on a day that the very Catholic Church admits they started, and yet the churches stood up and said, well, we are against it. We don't believe what you're teaching, but yet today it's not an issue. I'll show you something else in a minute. All right, Pope John the 23rd, in his inaugural address, you can go back and check it on the internet, alluded to the fact, and you can read the words, that he said, we only have about 20 years or so that we've got to save the planet. And we've got to have a climate change, okay? It wasn't the first. There'd been scientists and stuff talk about it. But here is a religious political power person saying, we've got to do something about it. So that brings us to the encyclical that he wrote in 2015. How many of you are familiar with his encyclical, Laudato Si? A few of you are, okay? Some churches I go in, nobody doesn't know anything about it. We say, well, why does it matter? Well, remember, we're talking about the third angel's message, that we know what's coming down the road, okay? We'll come back to that. And so he wrote this church for the Catholic Church. However, I will show you in a few minutes how that expanded. So I've asked Cindy to read, and what we're going to do is just read one, and in your folder, it's the blue sheet. It's on the second or third thing there, I believe, in your folder. And it looks like I may have one that's a single sheet, but that's a folded sheet, is it? It's what?
The back of the first page.
Back of the first page. Okay, has everybody found it? And I want you to be able to follow this because it's critical. This is not just fun. It's actually what we're looking at. Now, we had it on the screen, but I think that may be hard to read. Okay, she's going to read the first sentence now. Paragraph 237. If you go to that encyclical, it's very long, because it's his plan to save the climate. Okay? And I'll show you in a few minutes who all's accepted it. But paragraph 237 is what we're focusing on. Okay, Cindy, first sentence.
On Sunday, our participation in the Eucharist has special importance.
Okay. We know that the Eucharist is a very important day as far as the communion and some of the other things. So right off in this paragraph, now remember, he's presenting 7 plans to save the climate. This is plan number 6. Interestingly, we'll come back to that, why. But it's paragraph 6. So the first one says that the Eucharist is very important. Now he's saying that basically to the Catholic Church. We need to pull back together in the Catholic Church even. And he's saying we need to be one. But watch what happens next. Okay, next sentence.
Sunday, like the Jewish Sabbath, is meant to be a day which heals our relationships with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the world.
Now, how did that start? What were the first words?
Sunday.
No, right after that.
As the Jewish Sabbath.
As the Jewish Sabbath. Well, somebody got a Bible, show me where it says Jewish Sabbath in the Bible.
Never.
You see, folks, what I'm saying here is a most powerful political, religious leader in the world, and he just throws stuff out there, and people believe it. Please show me where it says that. Okay? Now you can see where we're going. And he also says that reference he's making says that it brings us back together. Did you notice the latter part of that sentence? Read that again, Cindy.
Is meant to be a day which heals our relationships with God and with ourselves and with others.
Heal with God. It'll heal this Jewish Sabbath, now the first day of the week, Sunday, will help you heal your relationship with God and fellow men. That's important in the climate change in their philosophy. Okay, what's the third sentence?
Sunday is the day of the resurrection, the first day of the new creation, whose first fruits are the Lord's risen humanity, the pledge of the final transfiguration of all created reality.
A lot of big words there. Most people are not going to pay any attention to. That sounds pretty good. New creation. Well, that means we've had a bad world. We've all died. So now we've got the honor of the resurrection. We'll be honoring that on Sunday. Show me in the Bible where it says to do that. Can't do it. So here we go again. What do they have today? 1.3 billion Catholics in the world. And some of you are there, and you still may be there. And I'm not criticizing you. I'm talking about the system. Well, you understand that. But what are you basing this on when they tell you these things? Okay? That's why I use this book, the book Question Box. I mean, you can order it, you can buy them. It's easy to read. Mine, the little one's worn out. In which it says, well, for example, one of the questions is, how does the Pope say he's equal to God? Well, their answer is, well, in reality, he's not equal to God. However, when he speaks ex cathedra, he is equal to God. Those are the very words. Anyway, all right, what's the next sentence?
It also proclaims man's eternal rest in God.
Okay, it's talking about the commandments now here in the Sabbath. Exactly. He's saying, so go ahead, just follow it.
In this way, Christian spirituality incorporates the value of relaxation and festivity. We tend to demean contemplative rest as something unproductive and unnecessary, but this is to do away with the very thing which is most important about work, its meaning.
Go ahead and finish the sentence. I'm sorry.
We are called to include in our work a dimension of receptivity and gratuity, which is quite different from mere inactivity.
Okay. What he said there at the end was we shouldn't just sit down and do nothing. But of course, keeping it holy means go to service in the morning and then do your ball games and everything else in the afternoon. Did you catch the word back in the sentence earlier in the festivity? In other words, fun and games, make you feel good. Okay. Again, when you go back to God's original writing, and that's what you must think, and I'm sure you've done this as your witness to people. Moses didn't originally write the Ten Commandments. God did with his own finger. So whatever we believe has to go to that point. So don't come and tell me, well, so-and-so changed it. Okay, go ahead.
Rather, it is another way of working, which forms part of our very essence. It protects human action from becoming empty activism. Now,
that's a good sentence. It's talking about work here, that work is beneficial. And it says just being active, you may work too much. Now, I've got some kids that's in that category. You know, my daughter, I think, is CEO of a company, and she goes to work at 6 a.m, gets home at 8 or 9 at night. And busy activism. Did you see that? So we need a day to rest. Well, thank you, Pope. That's why God set up Saturday, seventh day Sabbath. But he's making a point there needs to be a day. And he's already said 4 times, or 3, whatever it was, Sunday. All right, go ahead.
It also prevents that unfettered greed and sense of isolation which make us seek personal gain to the detriment of all else.
Now he's talking about the fact that people are working too hard, and it's all about money, and it's all about greed. He's saying, hey, there's a lot of truth in some of these things. Okay? Keep going.
The law of weekly rest forbade work on the 7th day, so that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your maidservant and the stranger may be refreshed.
Please notice this most powerful, supposedly intelligent theologian is using a reference to the 4th commandment. He's not referring to the 10 commandments. He's referring to the law in Exodus 32 about animals. All right, you want to read it again so you pick up on it? You got it in front of you. Read it again.
The law of weekly rest forbade work on the 7th day.
See, now he admits that. But then he goes on.
So that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your maidservant and the stranger may be refreshed. And he's quoting Exodus 23, verse 12.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Rest opens our eyes to the larger picture and gives us renewed sensitivity to the rights of others. And so the day of rest, centered on the Eucharist,
there you go,
sheds its light on the whole week and motivates us to greater concern for nature and the poor.
Remember, he's talking about the climate, and so he finally comes to it. And he even says it, that this rest day, the day of the Eucharist, which he's already said is the first day of the week, Sunday. And that is, by honoring and doing this, will bring all these other big words about, everybody getting it together and all that. Okay. I don't see any reason to go into anything on that. I mean, you can read what it is, okay? The next thing happened, that was 2015. Next thing, 2016. This is not necessarily in here, okay? 2016, he sent out a call to the religious and political leaders to the world. For what reason? To come to the Vatican in 2017. Okay, anybody in here remember that? Okay, well that's a fact. You can go back and read it. And so the religious and political leaders went, and I remember a few years ago, there was some question of whether the Adventist Church sent the Religious Liberty Secretary did go. I saw him picture shaking hands with the Pope. Nothing wrong with that. People can read into what they want to on that. Many of the leaders, like Rick Warren, Joel Osteen, on and on and on, because they were invited. Why were they invited? Simply to have a banquet and say, I've invited you because I want you to come back in 2017 in a year for a great celebration. It's going to be the end of the Reformation and the end of the Protestant Reformation. So they come right on back. I would ask you to go if you're interested. Just type in. I pick on Rick Warren because I know Seventh-day Adventists, many of them have read his books, 30 days of 40 days of work, so forth. Rick Warren, you can hear him say it. It's not hearsay. He says, the Pope is the leader of all Christians. He's not my leader. He used to have 33,000 members there at Saddlebrook, or maybe more than that now. Who knows? And other statements. If you love the Lord, you'll love the Pope, or you can turn that around. If you love the Pope, you'll love the Lord. Just things like this. Joel Osteen came away with his, 50 or 60,000, the big stadium they meet in. And he came away saying that he thought it was extremely important to recognize the Pope bringing things together. You can go back and check these things. The purpose of this, I was asked to come and talk about last day events, and that's what churches have asked me to do, because many Seventh-day Adventists are not aware of what's really going on to the prophecies that we know is going to happen. And if we're supposed to preach the third angel's message, then I think we ought to know a little bit about the history and the makeup, okay? Now, keep in mind, though, I didn't by luck or accident preach the sermon I did this morning, because we need to understand the spiritual part before anything else. Okay. All right. So they had the meeting in 2017. You can go and read it if we had time or could pull it up there and all. He came away. The Pope said, the Protestant Reformation is now over. We're all in agreement. We're back as one God, one Christ, one faith, one baptism. Direct quote. And so you can see where all this went. And so how did that happen? How did he get to the point where he could say all this? Well, you just heard, I just mentioned 2 Protestant leaders, but many others that have been very supportive. All right, let's go forward. 2019, I'm going to have you read this. This is not in the sheet, so let me hand it to you where I do with it. I can't read it, find it. Just a second. Okay, this is 2019, a simple statement that he made on September 12, 2019. Some more big words, but please listen to it.
Never before has there been such a need to unite our efforts in the broad educational alliance to form mature individuals capable of overcoming division and antagonism, and to restore the fabric of relationships for the sake of a more fraternal humanity. Boy, that's flowery.
What?
That's very flowery.
Yes. It's easy to get lost in some of these things where people say, I can't read all that. What does that mean? Fraternal humanity? What does that mean? Well, it means getting along, stop fighting. But notice what he said. Did you notice again that thing about activism? And can you read that part again?
Let's see. It says, never before has there been such a need to unite our efforts in a broad educational alliance to form mature individuals capable of overcoming division and antagonism.
What that's saying is, we got to quit politically fighting back and forth or spiritually back and forth. In other words, you've got an opinion and I've got an opinion. We can't do that. We've got to come back together and compromise. That's the word they use over and over. I mean, they don't use it, but they use it. Come back to one, and then things will be better. 2019. Now he's ready to go to 2021. And I'm not sure. Let me just go on. 2021. he gets ready to present this plan that he has, the Laudato Si, which means praise be to God in Latin. And so he now has this plan, and it's finalized and voted by the Catholic Church, but not just the Catholic Church, on May 25th, 2021. Folks, I ask you, go back on the internet and find it yourself, the actual signature. I mean, it's crazy. They've got religious leaders from Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Protestant leaders, and the Catholic Church filmed it. And you can see that the camera, I remember one case specifically when the guy that's the head of Buddhism comes up, it says it on his shirt, and they make sure they show the shirt while he's actually signing that they approve Pope Francis' plan. Now, again, if we had time to go through all the internet, but we don't. So, so it was voted. Now, what I wasn't sure at the time was, when was that going to start? Well, it turned out May 25th, 2022. Okay, this is all on the internet. It's not made up. The plan is this. First year, deal with the family. That means between May 25, 2022, till 2023, May 25th. Deal with the family. Do we all agree that we need to work on improving families in this country and all around the world? Second year, the poor. Jesus said you'll always have the poor, and Jesus specifically talked about helping the poor. Sometimes I think we get bogged down and think, well, the poor ought to help themselves. Jesus specifically talked about the role of the church. That's why many of our churches are using help with food, which, I understand the political thing of this, but you have to go back to what Jesus said, okay, as far as helping people. Third year, you can see it down through there. There's no need to go through it all. The third year was economics. Then you go down to finances. You see education, finances. What's significant is plan number 6. What's plan number 6? It's the spiritual ecological plan. What does that mean? Well, he's already put at the beginning of Laudato Si here, talking about the come back to Sunday, how we need to do that. That was significant in 2015. When I gave you that statement a moment ago. So now he is saying spiritual ecological plan. It's interesting, he didn't say the 7th year. The 7th year, he put the community. Cleverly done. Cleverly done. Because generally speaking, just like the reason you're here and we do evangelism individually, saying the same thing with the Catholic Church, that we need everybody in all the communities to come together and recognize the importance of Sunday worship and Sunday recognize this in order to save the planet, the climate, when we fully know that's not really what they're wanting. Why have we always talked about the closing events? And why does Revelation talk about the mark of the beast and the mark that you cannot buy or sell unless you have the mark and the head or the hand? Think about that. You go to Disney World or somewhere like that. I was down there with our family, and I said, well, I don't have an idea. My daughter said, you don't need that. They already know from your forehead who you are. I said, what? And, all this crazy stuff. And so, when I was a kid, they used to talk about that. Well, we're not sure how that's going to work, but you're going to, it's easy today. If I had time here today, I may run out of time on showing you what really is going on behind the scenes, but we'll try to look at the highlights. So, folks, I think you can see here that the framework is in place. Now, you've got to be careful because Seventh-day Adventists have been in the past tried to set dates. We know that, but even before the Adventist Church. And it's only logical. I know the person. He's a really good guy, but he wrote a book back in 2000, that it looked like things were going to happen. Well, I've already said, if you stop and think about it, the same as that prophecy in Daniel 9, 490 years is 2040. Back up 7 years, if you go by 283 years, it's 2033. In the Catholic Church, that is the same as 2031. Are you following me? So what does that mean? Well, let's go a little farther. Let's go into something else, and I may have messed up my sheets here. Because it's not just the Catholic Church, folks. I've mentioned the religious leaders. But I want to show you, we're just going to take a quick glance. We're not going to be able to do much here. I'm going to show you, though, where all is spreading. First, this is the United Nations Climate Conference. I don't know if that's in your notebook or not. I'm not sure. It should be in order. It is in there. Okay, we're going to let her read start on this. Now, the reason I'm showing you, folks, if we believe the prophecies, and most of us, I think, believe it, but it may happen someday. Well, someday will happen. It's a blue she's showing you right now what color it is.
Bright blue.
And so let's see what the United Nations, well, it says they're interested in the climate change. So let's see what this means.
Between November 6th and 18th, 2022, the UN Climate Conference COP27 took place on the Sinai Peninsula in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt.
Why would they do something like that? What's the Vatican got to do with Egypt and there? I think we already know the answer.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Religious communities and religious leaders have a key role to play in addressing climate change and climate justice.
Don't miss that point. This is under the United Nations climate change policy, and it says religious leaders have a significant role to play. Why? They're not scientists. Do you see the connection, folks, of what I'm saying, of what is going on in the minds of people regarding Satan is behind all of this? Go ahead.
Which requires deep transformation within society. The knowledge of what changes are critically needed to diminish long-term harm to the planet is readily available. However, bringing about a change in action demands deeper changes in attitude, a change of heart, and this has been the domain of religions for millennia. Religions are sources of inspiration for the transformation of heart and the ensuing changes of attitude.
Stop a moment. You caught it there. This is a Catholic philosophy. Religion has changed people's politically, maybe with force, whatever, but you can see exactly what's being done here. Why is the United Nations involved with this in the first place? Well, they're interested in the climate change. Well, isn't it interesting? Anyway, go ahead.
To support, challenge, and inspire discussions during COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh, 10 interfaith climate events took place in Sharm el-Sheikh, Jerusalem, London, Rishikesh, India, and elsewhere that were heart-stirring, transformative, and a moment of inspiration for religious communities and for humanity.
Right. Do we need to be reminded? Christianity, first of all, the Jews, and the Islam. All three, right back there. Not an accident. I mean, that was pretty clever, actually. For the United Nations, they may not have known the Bible or anything else. Catholic Church does. So let's go right there next to the Sinai Peninsula. Oh, that'll be significant. It'll get the people from Islam interested, the Jews interested, and the Christians interested. What a plan.
Religious leaders called for a re-examination of deep-seated attitudes and for identifying ways to transform these attitudes for the well-being of Earth, our common home.
Again. So what's the Pope's plan? He's already got it. I've got a way to make things better off. Good. Keep going.
Mount Sinai is a mountain whose memory and meaning loom large as a place of revelation in the collective consciousness of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and others. As an ancient sacred space, it was the site of prophetic experience and receiving God's message for the prophets Moses and Elijah in all three Abrahamic traditions, and the prophet Muhammad in the Muslim tradition. COP27 taking place in Sinai reminded humanity of our sacred responsibility to care for God's creation.
Okay, folks. Pope Francis says we got a climate problem. As Christians, we ought, and religious people, we should honor God's creation. That's a great plan. But notice the direction it's going, knowing their political power. And folks, may I add, why is it mentioning these different countries? What does the Bible say in Revelation? The whole world
Wonders.
You can see why. Anyway, continue.
We come to Sinai in a movement of repentance and quest. We seek a new vision for humanity and its endangered existence, and we seek to receive and amplify a message of life-sustaining living and habits that humanity needs to hear today. In this spirit, the project partners brought together premier religious leaders from the world's major religions to put forth a prophetic interreligious call to action, 10 universal principles for climate justice.
Yeah, and I have those. We're not going to go through that. You can get it yourself if you want to, but they outline 10 principles. Did they use the word prophetic?
Yes.
That's interesting. Oh, boy. So all I'm showing you right now,
It is
where
prophetic.
we are, the United Nations. Okay? Now, there are other world powers that are involved. For instance, how many of us have heard of G7? Top democratic countries in the world. Okay. G20, the top richest and most powerful nations involved. You can also go and see how they fit into this scenario. All supportive. And so, okay, for the sake of time, let's go to the next one. Do you have one on the World Economic Forum? EW. Oh, I'm sorry. Question. I guess we should have asked questions at this point before we go any farther. Go ahead.
Neil Wilson joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church to the UN.
Sorry, go ahead. So,
Didn't Neil Wilson join the Seventh-day Adventist Church to the UN?
well, I don't know. I don't know of any legal thing on that. Suggestions may have been, because normally, no, I've never seen that. I'd have to be careful. I hear people quote things that I've never seen. Let me say this now that it's brought it up, folks. You know, when you saw what they did with the Jesuits, it was obvious they got into different denominations. It's obvious that they would work their way up all churches into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Catholic Church is not dumb. They know the the power of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because we basically, and Jesus said, when this message goes to the whole world, you come back. About 5 years ago, we only had 22 nations left, and we pretty well into most of those. You take like my Bible research is in all these countries, you say, well, they can't understand it. When I went to India to hold evangelism meetings, they're 24 hours different than we are. So I got there in the middle of the night, and I was in this little dinky motel, which would be the best one over there, but it's like whatever. And there's a television on there. I thought I'd just turn it on. First thing on there was the Hope Channel in English. So anyway, my point is, there was a time when I was at Andrews and some other times when I thought it was my job maybe to find out who these Jesuits are in the Adventist Church. And then my father-in-law, who was a minister, and then had some problems that came up in that, and he and I were talking one day, and he said the same thing. He said, well, have you known these two guys? And I said, yeah, because I knew they'd been to camp meeting at this conference. This was back in the 1940s or 50s. But I realized going through the years, that's not my job to find out who the Jesuits are. That's a satanic ploy, folks, to get me off track of studying God's word to figure out, oh, is it this person, is that person? That's crazy. That's how Satan works.
Didn't say Neil Wilson.
And well, I'm not. I know you didn't mean that, but I'm just saying that brought it up because you're going to hear and are hearing all kind of things that are going on. So folks, how it works is simple, and that is, if it's a Jesuit, well-trained, young, goes to evangelism meetings, wants to become a Seventh-day Adventist, we don't do background checks before you become an Adventist. You can see how easy it is to become in there. I will maybe, if I get time, just to mention one issue that has been and is a possible problem but I'm not sure. We'll just have to come to that one and see. All right, let's see. The World Economic Forum, is it in there or not? Okay, then I'll have to hand this to you. And what did I do with it? Just may have messed it up. I had it in front of me. Oh, it still is in front of me. I just couldn't see it. All right. We may not read all this. We'll see. The reason for this is the World Economic Forum is made up of the top richest nations. Okay. I'm not going to read it, but there's another one called the World Bank. Yeah. The World Bank actually started with the same guy. You'll hear the name mentioned here in just a moment. And the World Bank, the last time I checked, they had something like $340 trillion or something. So I checked to see who's in charge of it. Name was Joseph Kim, a Roman Catholic. Accident?
No.
I don't know. All right, this is the World Economic Forum. Let her just read a little bit because I got to show you, bring all this kind of together.
The World Economic Forum consists of representatives from all major nations. The forum is chaired by the founder and executive chairman, Professor Klaus Schwab.
Go ahead.
The management board acts as the executive body of the WEF. It ensures that with major countries to have a digital ID system in place by 2030. The system will be organized by activities fulfill the forum's mission. The Great Currency Reset, organized by the UN in collaboration with the Roman Catholic Church, organized to function through the World WEF.
Stop right there a moment. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Did you notice what it said? You may need to back up on that sentence. How many of you have heard of the cryptic currency idea? Raise your hands high. I can't see. Well, most of you have heard of it. Did you notice right there the reference to where it came from? Please read that again, Cindy.
You said it really.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold that mic close.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? The Great Currency Reset, organized by the UN in collaboration with the Roman Catholic Church, organized to function through the World WEF, which in turn is already working with the world. Care for the other is expressed in love and compassion as fundamental spiritual principles. These are to be applied to other humans, human communities, and other parts of creation. Compassion means suffering with others to feel the pain of the earth, of the poor, and of those who suffer the consequences of climate change.
Okay, I started to say, this whole thing was put together supposedly to help the poor. I mean, they mentioned it there only at the end. Okay, that brings us to, before I really want to get into that for a moment here, this is just 4 goals by the G7. Now, these are the top political powers the democratic countries. Plan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Number 1, strong alliances for a sustainable planet.
Wait a minute. I heard that word sustainable a minute ago with Pope Francis.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that? Oh, all these political, our democratic country, we need to pull together something that'll be solid, something that'll hold on going forward.
Number 2, setting the course for economic stability and transformation.
All right. Economic stability. We know that's important. It's always has been, always will be. I think I'll mention it later. Go ahead.
Number 3, enhanced preparedness for healthy lives.
Say that again.
Enhanced preparedness for healthy lives.
Now we're talking about health. I love that. But it's become these countries say we've got to have a system here. If you'll notice in the sentence before, it's dealing with money. Go ahead.
Number 4, sustainable investments in a better future.
There you go again. Sustainable twice, something that'll last. Folks, these are the nations, the strongest, democratic, also the richest nations. Okay? Now, why would I say something? We'll read the last one. And I'll mention.
Number 5 is stronger together.
Come together. What was the post-host suggestion? We're now one. We're no more Protestant Reformation. We're all together. We're all on Sunday. Nope. But you got your Bible and then just hand it there unless you have one. Let's go to Revelation 18. Now, verse 1 plainly says what we know is going to happen, but it's verse 23 that I'd like for her to read, if you don't
I
mind.
don't have a Bible here. Anybody got one I can use?
Let her go ahead and read one. Read one if you want to. You can read it. Yeah, read verse 1, then read the next verse. I said 23.
What do you say? Revelation what?
Okay. And
Revelation
after,
18, verse 1, then 23.
and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power,
Okay,
and the
stop.
earth.
After these, what happened in Revelation 17? The end of all apostate religion. All that's going to come to an end. We know that, regardless of how powerful they are and everything else. God is in control. But now notice what's going to happen right here at the end of time now. Go ahead. Read that again.
Okay. After these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And then on verse 23, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee.
This is talking about what we've been talking about, the power of the Roman church and all this apostate religion.
And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived.
Did you catch that last part, folks? Yeah. By the merchants, the rich people. I just showed you 3 different organizations connected with money. So I think you can see the importance of that prophecy because it says they will deceive all nations. So here we've got the United Nations, World Economic Forum, G7, G20, supposed to be solving all the problems, and according to the Bible, they're going to deceive everybody. Through sorcery, exactly. And I'm glad you said that because if I have time, we're obviously going to have to mention that in a few moments, but we'll continue on. Since we're on that topic, let's come to this current cryptic conversion, if you want. That's what it's called. But this is a statement by, let's see here. Yeah, I've got, I think, 2 sentences. Let's see. I've just got a little bit of a sentence right here. Read what you got there. Let me see if it makes sense what I've got in my hand.
Pope Francis addressed the following to the heads of the major banks and corporations. It is with pleasure that
Okay, I think this is right here, the continuation. If you don't mind, start right here on June 15th.
Okay.
EW,
Yes.
I just looked it up. No, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is not a member of the United Nations.
Say are or not.
They are not.
Okay, thank you. I didn't think they were. I'd never heard they were, so thank you. Okay, I'm going to let her read a little bit more here just for a second, real quick.
Protecting Nature, Godwin said. On June 15, 2024, Pope Francis met with the CEOs of the major banks and corporations at the Vatican during a major corporation, I think it's out of order.
Who'd you say met with them?
The major banks.
No. Who
CEOs.
Who? Pope Francis?
Yeah, Pope Francis
There
met.
you go, right there, folks. He met with all the major. I mean, there's no need to spend any more time on that. I think you can understand the situation. Okay, I'm trying to decide what to do here next, for the sake of time. I think what I'll do is mention. I'm going to try to stay on this track a minute on the currency, the cryptic currency. I've got it, but I don't think it's in your paper. Is there anything in your handout on the cryptic currency? I don't know if there is. If not, you probably have to go on the internet. Please notice, folks, it's not politics. Joseph Biden in 2022.
Green sheet. Yeah.
Oh, the green sheet. Thank you. I didn't even know there was a green sheet in there.
Joe Biden.
I don't have a green sheet.
Starts off about Joe Biden.
Well, now, let me see what you got. I don't, maybe we've got, okay, well, don't panic if it's not in there. We'll let her read some of it. Okay, because okay. I may have mixed up a folder or two. My secretary puts them together, but that doesn't mean I keep it together. So. Okay, let's see what it says. Go ahead. Okay, hold it, folks.
Okay, question. Is it President Biden's plan to do away with paper money for digital currency? The answer, no. Biden executive order won't replace paper money with digital currency. Some people on social media have claimed that an executive order signed in March 2022 would make paper money worthless. That is false. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin have exploded in popularity in recent years, leading President Joe Biden to sign an executive order in March 2022 that outlines the government's plan to address the risks and harnessing the potential benefits of digital assets. The executive order also explores the possibility of creating a centralized bank digital currency, a CBDC, in the U.S. That's led some people on social media to claim months later that the executive order would phase out cash and make paper money worthless.
Okay, let me explain the plan real quick, if you're not aware of it. The idea is that, and it mentioned, they're talking about a few central banks in the world. Not a lot, but a few regionally. And but the idea would be that all finances would go through that facility. And so the idea was, again, and somebody says, well, right now, what all do? You use your debit card, you use a credit card, you don't exchange money, cards. So it actually sounds like a possibility, okay? And so President Biden then put it as an actual executive order to see if it would work. Okay. All right. Now let's go forward to President Trump. Most of you are aware of the Project 2025. How many of you are aware of that? Has anybody read all 900 pages? I haven't. But I have checked this section. So let's just see what it says here, what I have, but then we'll talk about what's happened in the last few days on that.
Project 2025, page 621, the chapter on the Department of Labor. God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day. Moreover, a shared day off makes it possible for families and communities to attainments can secure happiness if health is wanting.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
But folks, I want you to think about what they just said in that document, okay? That in the past, there were laws, Sunday laws, blue laws, requiring people to close the businesses on Sunday. That's exactly what they were referring to. But the new plan is, if you're not aware of it, how many of you are aware of it? Okay. Basically, in this plan, if you went ahead and check it yourself, which I'm not getting into all that, the plan is that people who work in hospitals, medical fields, they don't get to rest on Sunday. So all they're asking is to pay them time and a half. I have yet to find out if you're wanting them to rest, why giving them more money? I haven't quite figured that out yet, but that is the plan. But it is, to be fair, in this 2025 plan, it does say if a person does worship on another day, such as Saturday, it also would apply. Well, that's nice if they're going to make it both ways. But can you see where this is headed? I mean, all these things, these great money people, everything centers around. And you can say what you want to, but you can see where all this is headed. So in the last few days, if you check the news, you'll see that steps are still being taken, very possibly for the current government to go in that direction. Basically, the words are, let's see how it will work and how that, so on and so on. Okay, folks, what I've tried to show you now for a few minutes is when we talk about the Catholic Church, again in fulfillment of prophecy. First of all, which day? That's obvious. And how's it going to happen? When we were kids, again, and it said, you know, if you can't buy or sell, well, think about it today. When I just said they can control everything, whether you're going into Disney World or whatever, and now we're talking about the possibility of going toward Pope Francis' plan. I'm not trying to predict anything, but it should get our attention. And folks, surely we're studying, making sure we know the prophecies. And we have no excuse, folks. I am so thrilled that the General Conference of the North American Division decided to spend out great controversies all over this country. And I can tell you our conference has put a lot of money in for churches to get these out there. I mentioned this morning Dr. Bryant, the 10,000 Baptist Church, 10,000 members. I'm pretty sure this pastor was giving him great controversy. I didn't see him at ministers meeting this week to ask him, did he? Because I know I asked him last year, and he said, oh yeah, I'm going to. So our job personally is to know what we believe. But it goes, and that's why I said this morning, it's got to come back to a spiritual relationship. Knowing prophecy doesn't matter. But, you know, at the same time, we need to make sense with what in our Bible studies to where we're headed. Okay, now what I'd like to do here, because I need to finish in about 10 more minutes, because as far as getting out of here and so forth, there are a couple of other areas. One of those is spiritualism. Folks, we know that Jesus himself told the disciples, they said, the very first words in Matthew 24, what's the sign of your coming? See, they even look for signs like we do. And Jesus gave them the answers. First answer was Jerusalem's going to be destroyed, and then all these prophecies. And so we know the prophecies. Daniel 12, time of trouble coming since the world has never seen. All of these things. But we've got to put it together. Rather than fear, we should have hope. I know that I used to hear it through the years, what will I do? Folks, if we got to put our faith and trust in God. Why? I've thought about this. Stop and think about it. When they were being forced, John Huss's last words, will you retract your statements? He said, you can read it in the name. Just said in the name of Jesus. So, folks, this is why I'm saying, these things that gets our attention, we know, but we don't know the time. God is in control. But spiritualism, please, folks, Jesus himself said, he's going to appear in the desert. He's going to appear here. Don't go there. Why do we hear these things? And you're going to hear it in the Adventist church. And folks, and we're told, and it's true, the masterpiece of deception will be when Satan appears as Christ. Folks, when I was a kid, like I told you, we didn't even have a television in the 1940s, and finally there was a black and white TV. You could barely get a station from Atlanta. Today, kids can get the thing on their wrist and watch anything they want to watch. Are you following me? So imagine if in the morning or tonight, Satan appears as some bright, beautiful being, object looking like Christ. How quickly will it take for that to go? I promise you, within a few hours, it'll be all over the world. And so we really, that part of our talking to people really needs to be reminded that Eve failed and Adam and Eve failed in a perfect situation. And we need to make sure we understand, because you can see it. You can see it as plain as day that Satan is going to make that appearance at the right time. He knows he has a short time. It's an interest. I mean, from the 7th volume to the church, page 192, I believe, she says that Satan in 1844 was 10 times more powerful than he was at the early church. If that's true, think about what it is today. I mean, so, and so that's why I said this morning, folks, we've got to know what we believe. We've got to understand these things. But imagine that you can see it going to happen as plain as day. When he comes on and it's going to say, and people are going to say, look, did you know that this is Jesus over in, it looks like he's saying the right things. And that brings me to this final great, what's next to the final great thing that's happening, and that's AI. One of these shows like Where the Gods is talking, I heard it, he was going to say something about it, so I turned it on, and he starts off just talking. In about 5 minutes, he said, folks, this was not me. It looked like him. He said it. It sounded like him, which tells me that all my videos on the internet, there could be somebody in the morning saying the same thing, countering every bit of that. Buddy, when you talk about things here at the end of time, no comparison to the past, and it's going to get wilder. So, folks, the other thing, why are we not praying in our churches for the outpouring of the Holy Spirit? I'm going to say it again. Please read the book of Acts. Please read the chapter on Pentecost and gifts of the Spirit if you don't read anything else. How many of us believe in the outpouring of the latter rain? Well, we say it's going to be poured out in this church? No, it's going to be poured out in each person in this church. Each person. And then it becomes magnification. My IQ, Cindy, you don't have to tell anybody this, but my IQ in math is in the moron range. I took an IQ test when I was somewhere at Andrews, and my IQ in math was like 67 or 76. But I know this. I've got 2 kids that are in one boy that's the largest insurance company in the world and is an actuary. And when he was taking calculus and stuff like that, and I see all these sheets like that, I said, Eric, what in the world? He said, Dad, don't ask. But I know this, that 4 plus 4 is 8, but 4 squared is 16. And that is the way that the magnification is going to happen. How many of us believe it? Then why are we not studying and praying? This church, I believe, is so far ahead spiritually of some of the churches I go in. Crazy things are happening. I'm going to have to say this, and we've got to be very careful how I say it. I'm holding a document right in front of me, but I think I'm going to see if I can say it this way. Things will come in, and we know that, okay? And it'll appear as a positive change. How many of you have heard of the One Project? The One Project. Okay, that was a youth movement about 2017, 18, and 19. Believe it or not, I faced it. It first came up. I knew nothing about it. At that point, a couple people working in the conference. They're not at the conference working now. And they started challenging me on the spirit of prophecy and some other things. And all I'm saying is that disbanded, but it's come back with another top name. Do not be, you know that things are going to happen. It can be, anything can come into our church. It could be spirit of prophecy is not valid anymore. We don't follow the spirit of prophecy. Some churches don't even want to use the spirit of prophecy. I'm not usually invited in those churches, but anyway. Follow me, folks, we can't get involved in arguments, things going on wherever. If you hear the church across the street is a Seventh-day Adventist church, and you know they're using a different method of worship, we cannot get into banning them or vice versa. So all I'm saying in closing today, folks, is Jesus pointed out all the signs, point right to where we are. But again, folks, I hope the only purpose of today is to show you that we're going in that direction. And that should encourage us because, you know, in my case, I've been hearing it all my life. Well, and I hear this all the time. I don't know how many people this week have told me, oh, I wish they said that all our life. Well, that tells me that you've got doubts of whether it really is ever going to happen. It's going to happen someday. Folks, Christ could come today or our life could end today. And so I don't know if you have any, we're going to have to close right now. So what we're going to do, can you bring me that little box that's back there on the middle of the table? There's plenty of magazines and all things back there. And by the way, while she's doing that, this is the book I was talking about this morning from Desire of Ages. This is the book I said the Methodist Episcopal pastor asked for a number for his church for Bible study. And the Baptist Sunday school teacher said he wanted 25 also. So that's the book that I was talking about. If you, on that table or the health magazines, there's one there on exercise. If you'll bring it up here, please. The book's back here. Oh, okay. And also, Cindy, can you bring me one of those envelopes that's on the right side over there? Yeah. As I said earlier, some of you maybe didn't hear that. This is the lessons of no, it's a magazine. Yeah. Let me just open this real quick, folks. This Bible research is very simple. It's very attractive. All they do is fill in the missing words of the Bible text. Not controversial at all. That's why Bible research through the years has had double with any other lessons as far as completion of starting and finishing. Because there's only 12 and it's filling in the missing words of Bible text. No argument. It's right there in the Bible. They fill it out. Then we go to It Is Written, Hope, Prophecy of Hope, or some of the other lessons. So what I'm saying is,